Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever walked into a room, stopped dead in your tracks, and had absolutely no idea why you went there? Or maybe you were mid sentence talking to someone you love and the word you needed just vanished, gone, like someone reached into your mind and pulled it out? You stood there almost embarrassed, laughing it off. But inside, something felt different. Something felt wrong. If that has happened to you, I want you to stay right here because what I'm about to share with you today could genuinely change the direction of your brain health starting tonight. My name is Dr. William Lee, and I've spent over 2 decades working at the intersection of nutrition, aging, and brain medicine. I've sat across from hundreds of patients over the age of 60 who came to me frightened, not because of chest pain or a broken bone, but because they were losing themselves slowly, quietly, and nobody had told them that what they ate before bed could either speed that process up or begin to reverse it. That's what this channel, BioSecrets, is built on. The science that exists, the knowledge that's available, but somehow never makes it to the people who need it most. If you find value in what we talk about here, I'd love for you to subscribe. It costs you nothing, and it means that the next time we have something important to share, and we always do, you'll be the first to know. Now, I want to be very clear with you right from the start. I'm not going to tell you that one fruit is a miracle cure. I don't believe in those words, and you shouldn't either. But I'm going to tell you that there is one specific fruit, one that most people over 65 either overlook completely or eat at the wrong time of day, that has a remarkable, scientifically grounded relationship with brain repair, memory protection, and the quality of the sleep that makes all of that possible. And here's something that surprised even me when I first began researching this deeply. The time you eat this fruit matters just as much as the fruit itself. The hour before you go to sleep is a biological window that most people waste. The brain at night isn't resting in the way you might imagine. It's actually working, cleaning, consolidating memories, repairing cellular damage. And what you give your body in those final hours before sleep can either fuel that process or interrupt it. So stay with me, because I'm going to walk you through 5 critical ways this fruit works inside your brain and body. And I'm going to count them down from 5 to 1, with the most important, most surprising insights saved for the very end. Each one builds on the last. By the time we reach number 1, you'll understand something about your own brain that most people your age have never been told. Let's start with number 5. Number 5, what's actually happening to your brain after 65 that no one talks about. Here's the assumption most people carry with them. Memory loss is just aging. It's inevitable. It comes for everyone eventually, and there's nothing meaningful you can do about it except accept it. I've heard this from patients. I've read it in comments online, and I want to challenge that assumption directly because it is dangerously incomplete. Yes, the brain changes as we age. That is real. But the rate at which it changes and how much function you preserve is deeply influenced by what's happening inside your body at the cellular level, particularly while you sleep. Here's what's actually going on. As you age, the brain's lymphatic system, think of it like the brain's overnight cleaning crew, becomes less efficient. During deep sleep, this system activates and flushes out metabolic waste products, including a protein called amyloid beta, which accumulates between brain cells and is strongly associated with cognitive decline. When this system doesn't function well, that waste builds up. Night after night, year after year, think of it this way. Imagine your kitchen after a full day of cooking, but instead of cleaning up at night, you just leave everything on the counter. The dishes pile up, the grease hardens. After a few days, the kitchen becomes almost impossible to work in. Now imagine that's your brain. The dishes are metabolic waste. The cleaning only happens during quality deep sleep. And if something is disrupting that deep sleep or robbing your brain of the nutrients it needs to do the job right, the accumulation begins. This is why people who consistently sleep poorly in their 50s and 60s show significantly higher risk of cognitive problems in their 70s and beyond. The risk isn't sudden, it builds quietly. The practical step here is simple but profound. You need to start treating your evening hours as brain recovery time. That shift in thinking alone changes the decisions you make. And one of those decisions is what you eat or don't eat in the hour before bed. Number 4, the fruit that was hiding in plain sight and why timing changes everything. The fruit I'm talking about is tart cherries, not the sweet, dark cherries you might grab from a bowl at a party, but specifically tart cherries, sometimes called Montmorency cherries, which you can find as whole frozen fruit, as tart cherry juice, or as a concentrated tart cherry extract in many grocery and health food stores across the country. Now, here's the assumption I want to correct right now because I hear this often. People think, oh, cherries. That's nice. Good for joints, right? And yes, tart cherries do have well documented anti inflammatory properties. But what the research has increasingly pointed to is something far more specific and far more relevant to people over 65. Tart cherries are one of the richest natural sources of melatonin found in any whole food on the planet. And before you say, I've heard of melatonin, I can just take a supplement, I want to pause you there because this distinction matters more than you might think. The melatonin in a supplement is isolated, synthetic, or semi synthetic, and often delivered in doses that are actually too high, which paradoxically can disrupt your sleep cycle over time. The melatonin in tart cherries is natural. It's delivered alongside a complex matrix of antioxidants called anthocyanins, and it enters your system in a way your body recognizes and uses more efficiently. It's the difference between handing someone a single tool and handing them a full toolbox. Here's the biology. Melatonin doesn't just make you sleepy. In the brain, melatonin acts as a direct antioxidant. It crosses the blood-brain barrier, which many compounds cannot do, and it neutralizes something called reactive oxygen species, which are essentially destructive molecules that damage neurons over time. When you eat tart cherries before bed, you're not just encouraging sleep. You're sending protective compounds directly into the brain during the hours when it's most vulnerable and most active in its own repair. Think of it like locking your house before you go to sleep. Melatonin from tart cherries is the lock. The brain can do its nightly work protected rather than exposed. Practically speaking, about half a cup of frozen tart cherries, or roughly 8 ounces of unsweetened tart cherry juice consumed 30 to 60 minutes before bed, is what the research consistently points to as the effective range. This is not a large amount, it's not complicated, but the consistency of doing it matters. Number 3, the hidden connection between gut health, inflammation, and memory loss. After 65, this is where things get genuinely surprising for most people. And I want you to stay very focused here because this connection is one that even many general practitioners haven't fully absorbed yet. Most people think of memory loss as a brain problem. And in one sense, yes, obviously it is. But here's the assumption that needs correcting. The brain doesn't operate in isolation. What's happening in your gut right now tonight has a direct line of communication to the neurons in your brain. This isn't metaphor. This is a documented biological pathway called the gut-brain axis, and it operates through nerve signals, immune signals, and chemical messengers that travel between the digestive system and the brain constantly. When the gut microbiome, the ecosystem of bacteria living in your intestines, becomes imbalanced, which happens more easily as we age, it triggers systemic inflammation. Low-grade chronic inflammation, the kind that doesn't give you a fever or make you feel obviously sick, but quietly damages tissues over time. And one of the tissues most vulnerable to that chronic inflammatory damage is brain tissue, specifically the neurons and regions associated with memory and learning. Here's the analogy I use with patients. Imagine inflammation as a slow-burning fire inside your body. You can't see the flames. You don't feel intense heat, but the smoke is everywhere, and over years it coats everything, including your brain cells, with damage. Now here's where tart cherries come back in, and this time in a completely different role. The anthocyanins in tart cherries, those deep red-purple pigment compounds, have been studied for their ability to modulate gut bacteria in a favorable direction. They act as what researchers call prebiotics, meaning they feed and support beneficial bacterial strains in the gut. Healthier gut bacteria means less inflammatory signaling. Less inflammatory signaling means less damage reaching the brain. What's more, some research in the nutrition science world has pointed to these same anthocyanin compounds crossing the blood-brain barrier directly and reducing markers of neuroinflammation, inflammation specifically within brain tissue. This is significant because neuroinflammation is now considered by many researchers to be one of the central mechanisms of age-related cognitive decline, not just a side effect. The actionable truth here is this: if you're over 50, you should be thinking about your gut health, not just in terms of digestion and comfort, but as a direct investment in your brain's future. Adding tart cherries to your evening routine begins addressing both simultaneously. Number two, what poor sleep is doing to your memory and the one nighttime nutrient almost everyone over 65 is deficient in. I want to talk directly to you for a moment. If you're over 65 and you wake up most mornings feeling like you didn't quite get the rest you needed, if you fall asleep fine but wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning and struggle to get back, if your dreams feel shallow and your mornings feel foggy, I want you to understand that this is not just inconvenient. What's happening during those interrupted nights is measurably, documentably harmful to your brain. Here's the assumption that I need to correct here, and it's one I see constantly in patients. Many people believe that as long as they get their 7 or 8 hours in bed, their brain is getting what it needs. But the total time in bed and the quality of sleep are two completely different things. And after 65, sleep architecture, the way your brain cycles through different stages of sleep throughout the night, changes significantly. You spend less time in the deepest, most restorative stages of sleep. And it's specifically during those deep stages that memory consolidation happens. Let me explain memory consolidation in a way that makes it real. During the day, your brain records experiences, conversations, faces, the name of a medication your doctor mentioned, where you left your keys. These are like rough drafts. At night, during deep sleep, the brain reviews those drafts and decides what to keep, what to strengthen, and what to transfer from short-term storage into long-term memory. If that nighttime review process is interrupted, if you don't reach deep sleep or don't stay there long enough, those memories don't get properly filed. They fade. And over years, that fading becomes what feels like memory loss. Now, here's the nutrient connection that most people have never heard their doctor mention. Tryptophan is an amino acid, a building block of protein, and it's the precursor your brain uses to produce serotonin, which then converts into melatonin. Most people don't realize that tryptophan levels drop naturally as we age. And when tryptophan is low, the whole chain breaks down. Less serotonin, less melatonin, lighter, more fragmented sleep, less deep sleep, less memory consolidation, more cognitive vulnerability. Tart cherries contain tryptophan. They also contain melatonin directly. They contain anthocyanins that reduce the inflammation, which itself disrupts sleep quality. This is what I mean when I say this fruit is operating on multiple levels simultaneously. It's not doing one thing. It's doing several things in concert at the exact biological moment, the transition into sleep when your brain needs them most. If you are someone who wakes in the night and can't return to sleep easily, try consuming tart cherry juice or frozen tart cherries about 45 minutes before your normal bedtime for at least 2 to 3 weeks consistently. Consistency is the word I want to emphasize. Your brain's sleep architecture doesn't reset overnight, but it does respond gradually to the right inputs given at the right time. Number one, the thing that matters most and why the window before 65 is not closed after 65. This is the point I've been building toward, and I want you to receive it fully, because this is the part that I believe matters most, not just scientifically, but personally. The assumption I need to correct here is perhaps the most damaging one of all. And that assumption is this, that by the time you reach your mid 60s or 70s, the opportunity to meaningfully protect or improve your brain health has already passed, that the ship has sailed, that whatever you're experiencing now is fixed and the trajectory is only downward. I have seen this belief cause real harm, not because it's malicious, but because when people believe nothing can help, they stop trying. And when they stop trying, they stop moving, stop engaging, stop nourishing themselves thoughtfully, and the decline that they feared accelerates precisely because of the hopelessness they felt. So let me tell you what the science actually says. And let me say it as clearly as I know how. The brain retains neuroplasticity, the ability to form new connections, reinforce existing pathways, and adapt well into the 70s, 80s, and even beyond. It is diminished compared to youth, yes, but it is not gone. The brain responds to stimulus, to nutrition, to sleep quality, and to reduced inflammation at every age that has been studied. There is no age at which the research says give up. Nothing works anymore. What the research does say is that the interventions need to be consistent, compound over time, and targeted. You can't eat one bowl of tart cherries and expect transformation. But you can begin a nightly habit that over weeks and months begins shifting the biochemistry of your brain in a measurable direction. Here's the deeper science behind why this matters so much specifically before bed. Your brain's neurons communicate through connections called synapses. As we age, synaptic pruning, the process of clearing away underused connections, becomes less precise, and synaptic density in memory critical regions like the hippocampus begins to decline. Sleep is when synaptic maintenance happens. The antioxidants delivered by tart cherries before bed, the anthocyanins, the melatonin, the tryptophan, provide the raw materials your brain needs to do that maintenance work more effectively. There's also emerging research around a compound called quercetin, which is present in tart cherries, and its relationship with something called senescent cells that have stopped functioning normally but haven't died, and that release inflammatory signals that damage surrounding healthy tissue, including neurons. Quercetin has shown what researchers call senolytic properties, meaning it may assist the body in clearing these damaged cells more efficiently. This research is still developing, and I want to be clear about that. But the direction of the science is consistent and encouraging. What I want you to take from number one isn't a compound name or a biological term. What I want you to take is this: the body at any age is always trying to heal itself. It is always moving toward equilibrium. What we do or don't do either supports that effort or works against it. Eating tart cherries before bed is a simple, accessible, inexpensive way to support the effort. It is not the only thing. It is not magic, but it is real and it is available to you tonight. Before I let you go, I want to have a brief, honest conversation with you, the kind I try to have with every patient before they leave my office. You may be watching this because something has already started to change. Maybe it's small, a word slipping, a name forgotten, a fog in the morning that wasn't there 5 years ago. And maybe it frightens you, not dramatically, not in a way you've told anyone else, but quietly. A private worry that lives behind your daily life. I want you to know that feeling that worry is not weakness, it's intelligence. It means part of you is paying attention, looking for answers, refusing to simply accept decline as destiny. And that part of you is right. The steps I've described today are not complicated. Half a cup of frozen tart cherries or 8 ounces of tart cherry juice unsweetened, no added sugars, 30 to 60 minutes before bed, consistently every night or close to it. That is the starting point. Pair that with good sleep hygiene, a dark, cool room, limited screen exposure in the final hour, a consistent bedtime, and you are giving your brain what it genuinely needs to do the nightly work it was designed to do. And one more thing, don't carry this information alone. If you have a spouse, a sibling, a friend over 60 who has started forgetting things or joking about it in that way people joke when they're actually a little afraid, share this with them. Send them this, tell them what you learned, because sometimes the most important thing a person needs is not a prescription. Sometimes it's just someone who cares enough to say, here's something that might help. You're not alone in this, and it's not too late. If you found today's conversation valuable, I genuinely appreciate you subscribing to BioSecrets. Everything we share here is built on the same principles: real science, real honesty, and a deep respect for the people who trust us with their most important questions. Leave a comment below, I mean that. Tell me if you've tried tart cherries before bed. Tell me what your sleep looks like right now. Tell me if something you heard today connected with something you've been experiencing. I read them. And your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. Take care of your brain, take care of your sleep, take care of yourself, because you are worth that effort at 65, at 70, at 80, and beyond. Good night, and I'll see you in the next one.